John D. Rockefeller, the man who controlled America's oil. John D. Rockefeller became so rich that at one time he controlled almost all the oil in the United States. Oil powered America's lights, factories, trains, and military. That meant one private man controlled the most important resource in the country. He decided who made money. He decided who went bankrupt. He decided how cheap or expensive energy would be. No politician in America had that much power. This is the true story of how Rockefeller built the biggest monopoly in history and quietly owned the American economy. Now let's go back to the beginning. Before the empire, before Standard Oil, before the billions, there was a poor boy with discipline and numbers. John Davison Rockefeller was born in 1839 in New York State. His family struggled financially. His father was often absent. His mother was strict, religious, and taught him extreme control over money. From a young age, Rockefeller tracked every cent he earned and spent. He lent money to neighbors and charged interest. He saved aggressively. While other children played, Rockefeller focused on accounting. He believed small money managed well becomes big money. How he entered business. At 16 years old, Rockefeller became a bookkeeper. This job taught him how companies controlled costs, how profits were calculated, how debt worked, how businesses failed. By his early 20s, he had built savings and strong bank relationships. This allowed him to borrow money, something most people couldn't do. He used that capital to enter commodity trading. Then oil was discovered, and everything changed. Why he chose refining. Thousands rushed to drill oil. Most failed. Rockefeller saw chaos, prices crashing, wells drying up, businesses collapsing. He chose the stable side, refining. Refining guaranteed consistent demand, and Rockefeller built refineries that were cheaper and more efficient than anyone else's. This gave him permanent advantage. The birth of Standard Oil and the first takeover strategy. Rockefeller now understood something most businessmen didn't. Oil wasn't a gamble. Refining was a system, and systems could be controlled. In 1870, he officially launched Standard Oil Company. But this wasn't just another refinery business. It was the beginning of a financial empire. Why most oil companies failed. At the time, hundreds of small refiners existed. They all faced the same problems: unstable oil prices, high transportation costs, inefficient equipment, poor financial planning. Most owners focused on daily survival. Rockefeller focused on dominance. He kept massive cash reserves. He constantly upgraded technology. He made sure Standard Oil could operate even when prices crashed. So when economic downturns came, others panicked. Rockefeller prepared. The weaponization of lower prices. Once Standard Oil grew large enough, Rockefeller made his move. He began selling oil cheaper than competitors. Not slightly cheaper, sometimes below cost. Smaller companies bled money immediately. They couldn't last months. Rockefeller could last years. When rivals were near bankruptcy, he approached them calmly. Sell your refinery to Standard Oil, or be destroyed completely. Most sold, not because they wanted to, because they had no choice. The roll-up strategy that built a monopoly. Rockefeller didn't just buy competitors randomly. He targeted strategically. Strong companies first, weak ones after. Every purchase made Standard Oil cheaper, larger, and stronger, which made the next takeover easier. This is called market roll-up, a strategy still used by corporations today. Within a few years, Standard Oil dominated Cleveland, then spread nationwide. How Rockefeller turned fear into a business tool. Word spread across the oil industry. Competing against Standard Oil meant financial death. Even profitable companies began selling early just to avoid future destruction. Rockefeller didn't need violence. His size was the weapon. Psychology did the rest. The moment Standard Oil became unstoppable. By the mid-1870s, Rockefeller controlled the majority of refining capacity in major cities. His costs were the lowest. His cash reserves were the largest. His influence was growing quietly. But one problem remained: transportation, and solving it would give him total control. The railroad game. How Rockefeller rigged the entire industry. Oil was heavy, dangerous, expensive to move, and in the 1800s there was only one way to move it at scale: railroads. Whoever controlled transportation controlled profit. Rockefeller understood this early, and he made railroads his secret weapon. The biggest cost in oil business. For most refiners, transportation was the killer. It could consume up to half of their revenue. One bad shipping deal could erase profits. Railroad companies knew this. They charged high rates. Small refiners had no power to negotiate. Rockefeller did, because he shipped massive volumes every day. The secret discount system. Rockefeller went directly to railroad executives. He offered them something powerful, guaranteed massive, steady shipments. In exchange for lower rates, special rebates, exclusive deals, the railroads agreed. Standard Oil paid far less to ship oil than anyone else, but it got even darker. Rockefeller made money from his competitors' shipments. Some railroads secretly paid Rockefeller rebates on every barrel shipped, including barrels shipped by his competitors. So when rivals moved oil, Rockefeller earned money from it. This meant his costs dropped further. Their costs stayed high. They were unknowingly funding their own destruction. Why competitors couldn't survive. Imagine two companies selling the same product. One pays half the shipping cost, the other pays full price. The cheaper company always wins. Rockefeller could cut prices and still profit. Others couldn't. They collapsed fast. The transportation choke point strategy. With railroad partnerships secured, Rockefeller now controlled the industry bottleneck. No oil could reach markets cheaply without touching Standard Oil. This wasn't just business advantage, it was economic control. The Octopus Empire. Journalists later described Standard Oil as an octopus. Its tentacles reached into refineries, railroads, pipelines, banks, warehouses, export terminals. Every stage of oil moved through Rockefeller's system. By the 1880s, Standard Oil controlled nearly 90% of U.S. refining. No company in American history had ever held that level of dominance. The money machine effect. Every acquisition made Standard Oil stronger. Every shipment made it cheaper. Every competitor collapse made it larger. This created a feedback loop. Size, lower costs, lower prices, more market share, even bigger size, an unstoppable monopoly engine. When America fought back against one man, by the 1880s, Standard Oil was no longer just a company. It was the oil industry. Prices, supply, transportation, competition, all flowed through Rockefeller's system, and the country was starting to realize something dangerous. One private business now held more power than most governments. The rise of the monopoly. Fierce small refiners had vanished, local oil towns collapsed, independent businessmen were wiped out, farmers blamed high fuel costs, consumers felt trapped by one supplier. The word monopoly became a national alarm. Newspapers accused Standard Oil of price-fixing, market manipulation, economic bullying, secret deals. Rockefeller had become the symbol of corporate control. The journalist who exposed the empire. In the early 1900s, investigative journalist Ida Tarbell published a massive expose on Standard Oil. She revealed the railroad rebate schemes, the price war tactics, the forced buyouts, the hidden agreements the French made. For the first time, Americans saw how the monopoly actually worked. Public anger exploded. Trust in Standard Oil collapsed. The government steps in. The U.S. had already passed the Sherman Antitrust Act to stop monopolies, but it had rarely been enforced. Rockefeller changed that. Politicians now had public pressure. Investigations began. Court battles lasted years. Standard Oil fought hard, but the evidence was overwhelming. The historic Supreme Court decision. In 1911, the U.S. Supreme Court made a landmark ruling. Standard Oil was officially declared an illegal monopoly. The company had abused market power. It must be broken apart. The empire that controlled nearly 90% of oil refining was ordered to dissolve. Standard Oil would be split into 34 separate companies. Many believed Rockefeller was finished. They were wrong. The most profitable breakup in history. When Standard Oil broke up, Rockefeller didn't lose ownership. He owned shares in every new company. As these companies became independent, investors rushed in. Stock prices soared. Rockefeller's wealth multiplied. What was meant to destroy his power made him richer than ever. The birth of modern oil giants. From this breakup came companies that still dominate today: ExxonMobil, Chevron, Amoco, Conoco. Rockefeller's empire didn't disappear. It spread across the entire energy economy. How Rockefeller turned control into unlimited wealth. When Standard Oil was broken apart in 1911, many Americans celebrated. They believed the monopoly had been destroyed, they believed Rockefeller had been defeated, but they misunderstood how real wealth works. Rockefeller no longer controlled one giant company. He now controlled pieces of 34 powerful companies, and those companies were about to explode in value. The power of ownership, not management. Before the breakup, Rockefeller managed the empire. After the breakup, he owned it. This shift made him even stronger. Each new company focused on growth. They expanded into new regions, they developed new technology, they competed globally. And every time they grew, Rockefeller's shares became more valuable. This is how modern billionaires build wealth today, not by running everything forever, but by owning powerful assets. The moment Rockefeller crossed $1 billion. Within a few years of the breakup, Rockefeller's net worth passed $1 billion. Adjusted for today's money, that would be over $400 billion. No human in modern history has officially matched that level of wealth. Not Jeff Bezos, not Elon Musk, not anyone. Rockefeller became the richest individual the world had ever seen. How his money kept compounding. Rockefeller wasn't a spender. He reinvested constantly. He held diversified assets, banks, steel roads, real estate, energy manufacturing apps. Every economic boom made him richer. Even downturns barely touched him. His wealth was too spread and too powerful. This is called capital compounding, money making money at massive scale. The family financial system. Rockefeller didn't just make money. He built a dynasty. He created family trusts. He hired professional wealth managers. He structured investments to last generations. This was one of the first modern family offices in history. Today, billionaires copy this exact model. Why Rockefeller's strategy still runs the world. Modern corporate giants use the same playbook. Amazon controls logistics, Google controls data, Apple controls ecosystems, oil companies control energy systems. Rockefeller invented system dominance. He showed that whoever controls infrastructure controls profit. This changed capitalism permanently. From business titan to philanthropic force. Later in life, Rockefeller shifted focus. He gave away over $500 million, billions in today's money. He funded medical research, public health campaigns, universities, science institutions. The Rockefeller Foundation transformed medicine worldwide. The University of Chicago became one of the top research schools on Earth. His wealth reshaped society. The paradox of Rockefeller. Rockefeller destroyed competitors, but he stabilized oil markets. He crushed businesses. But he lowered consumer prices long-term. He built a ruthless monopoly, but he also built modern industry. This contradiction defines capitalism today. Efficiency versus fairness, control versus competition. The big finance lesson from Rockefeller. Rockefeller proved 3 timeless rules. Control systems, not products. Scale beats talent. Ownership beats salary. These principles still create billionaires today.
The Rockefeller family's industrial and political accomplishments have helped shape America as we know it. And that's great, but real life isn't sunshine and rainbows. Here are some surprisingly dark facts about the Rockefellers.
The empire after the breakup. Rockefeller's quiet control. When Standard Oil was split apart, newspapers called it justice. But behind the scenes, Rockefeller was calmer than ever. He no longer had to fight lawsuits, he no longer had to answer regulators, he no longer had to defend one massive corporation. Now he simply collected profits. Each of the new oil companies sent dividends to him, month after month, year after year. His income was larger than before the breakup, and safer. How Rockefeller still controlled the industry without running it. Even though the companies were legally separate, their leadership all came from the old Standard Oil system. They shared business culture, pricing strategies, supplier relationships, industry intelligence. Rockefeller didn't need direct orders. The structure he built guided everything. His philosophy still ran the oil world. The silent expansion across the globe. While Americans focused on the monopoly trial, Rockefeller money moved overseas. Standard Oil companies expanded into Europe, Asia, Latin America, oil-fueled ships, factories, militaries, and global trade. Rockefeller wealth powered international industrial growth. The empire became global. The transformation of American industry. Cheap, stable oil changed everything. Longer factory hours, faster transportation, urban expansion, modern manufacturing. Rockefeller didn't just sell fuel, he powered the industrial age. Entire cities rose on Standard Oil energy. The personal life behind the empire. Despite unimaginable wealth, Rockefeller lived simply. No gold palaces, no wild spending. He followed strict routines, worked daily, tracked expenses. Even as the richest man alive, he believed discipline created power. This mindset built the empire. Health, crisis, and reflection. Years of stress damaged his health. He lost hair, his body weakened. Doctors feared early death. This forced Rockefeller to step back, and for the first time, he considered legacy, not just money, but impact. The creation of modern philanthropy. Instead of random donations, Rockefeller funded systems just like business. He attacked problems strategically: disease education, sanitation, scientific research. His foundations wiped out illnesses in many regions. They professionalized charity. Modern nonprofits are built on his model. The final years of the Titan, Rockefeller lived to 97, nearly a century of influence. He watched. Cars replace horses, electric lights replace oil lamps, skyscrapers rise, America become a superpower, much of it powered by the system he created. The real truth about Rockefeller: he was not a hero Hilderman, he was a system builder. He saw how power really worked and he mastered it. He proved that whoever controls infrastructure controls the future. The inner machine of Standard Oil. How the empire actually ran day to day. Behind the massive monopoly was a system so organized it looked like a modern corporation decades ahead of its time. Rockefeller created specialized departments long before most companies did. There were teams only for cost analysis, supply negotiation, transport optimization, legal strategy, market intelligence, technology improvement. Every barrel of oil was tracked, every expense was audited, every region had performance targets. Managers who failed were replaced quickly. Standard Oil wasn't a business, it was a financial engine. The data advantage that crushed rivals, Rockefeller demanded constant reports. How much oil moved daily, where demand was rising, where profits dropped, which competitors were struggling. This gave him early warning signals. When a rival was weakening, Standard Oil moved immediately. Price drops followed, buyout offers appeared, competitors rarely recovered. This is what modern corporations call market intelligence. Rockefeller invented it. The pipeline revolution, escaping railroad dependence. Once Standard Oil became large enough, Rockefeller built private pipelines. This changed everything. Pipelines were cheaper, faster, more reliable, fully controlled. Railroads lost leverage. Transportation costs dropped further. Competitors who still depended on trains were crushed even faster. The monopoly tightened. The financial pressure strategy. Rockefeller didn't only attack through pricing, he attacked through credit. Standard Oil had strong relationships with banks. Smaller refiners depended on loans to survive price fluctuations. When Rockefeller wanted a competitor weakened, bank credit mysteriously disappeared. Interest rates rose, loans were called in, businesses collapsed. Then Standard Oil bought them. This is the legal shield system. Rockefeller built one of the largest corporate legal teams in America. Every acquisition was structured carefully. Every contract protected dominance. Every lawsuit was delayed, appealed, or buried. Years could pass before courts acted. By then, competitors were already gone. The empire moved faster than the law. The control of oil prices internationally. Standard Oil didn't just influence America. It flooded foreign markets with cheap oil to destroy overseas competitors. Once rivals collapsed, prices rose again. This strategy expanded Rockefeller power globally. Many countries became dependent on American oil supply. The psychology of fear in the industry. Refiners didn't wait to be attacked. They sold early. The reputation of Standard Oil was enough. People knew if Rockefeller targeted you, survival was unlikely. This fear accelerated monopoly growth without conflict. The final transformation into a financial empire. By the time government action came, Rockefeller wasn't just an oil man, he was a capital controller. His wealth sat in banks, industrial companies, transport firms, real estate, mining operations. Even if oil collapsed, his fortune would survive. This made him nearly untouchable. The family behind the empire. John D. Rockefeller didn't build wealth just for himself. He was building a bloodline of power. He married Laura Spelman in 1864, a deeply religious, disciplined woman who believed in education, charity, and structure. Together they raised 5 children: Elizabeth Rockefeller, Alice Rockefeller, who sadly died young, Alta Rockefeller, Edith Rockefeller, John D. Rockefeller Jr., the heir to the empire. From the beginning, Rockefeller raised his children like a financial institution. They had allowances, but had to account for every cent. They earned bonuses for good habits. They were fined for bad behavior. He taught them saving, investing, discipline, and responsibility. Money wasn't emotion. It was a system. John D. Rockefeller Jr., the man who took the throne. Unlike his father, Rockefeller Jr. didn't run oil operations. The monopoly era was over, but the money was bigger than ever. His job was to protect and expand the fortune, and he did it quietly. He controlled massive shares in the former Standard Oil companies. He expanded investments into banking, real estate, infrastructure, international business, philanthropy. Philanthropy in his first full biter. But his biggest move changed American cities forever. The creation of modern New York City. Rockefeller Jr. funded and developed Rockefeller Center major commercial buildings, urban development projects. Entire districts of Manhattan were reshaped by Rockefeller money. This turned oil wealth into permanent real estate power, a strategy still used by billionaires today. The rise of the Rockefeller dynasty. By the early 1900s, the Rockefeller family wasn't just rich. They were an institution. They controlled massive financial portfolios, educational systems, medical research, urban development, political influence. The family became one of the wealthiest dynasties in human history. Adjusted for inflation, Rockefeller wealth peaked at hundreds of billions of dollars. No family had ever built power so systematically. John D. Rockefeller's final years. Rockefeller lived quietly in his later life. He walked daily, he gardened, he gave away dimes to children in the streets. He read financial reports even in old age. He outlived nearly all of his competitors. On May 23, 1937, John D. Rockefeller died at the age of 97. He had witnessed the Civil War, the Industrial Revolution, the rise of modern corporations, the birth of the automobile age, and much of it ran on the system he built. What happened to the money after his death? When Rockefeller passed away, the wealth did not disappear. It multiplied through family trusts, investment holdings, real estate empires, corporate shares. The Rockefeller fortune continued growing for decades. By mid-20th century, the Rockefeller family was considered the richest dynasty on Earth. The grandchildren, power across generations. Rockefeller Jr. had 6 children, including Nelson Rockefeller, future Vice President of the United States, David Rockefeller, longtime head of Chase Manhattan Bank, Lawrence Rockefeller, major investor and philanthropist. This generation expanded Rockefeller power into global finance, international banking, politics, science, and education. The family no longer just owned wealth, they influenced the world. The Rockefeller name becomes immortal. Universities, medical centers, foundations, research institutions, city landmarks. The Rockefeller name was carved into history. Their philanthropy reshaped modern medicine, public health, scientific research, education systems worldwide. Millions of lives were improved by Rockefeller-funded programs, the true scale of the empire. When economists compare wealth across history, John D. Rockefeller often ranks as the richest person in modern human history. Richer than emperors, richer than modern tech billionaires, richer than oil kings. Not because he earned more salary, because he built systems that never stopped producing money. The final truth about John D. Rockefeller. He didn't win by working harder. He won by controlling infrastructure, owning supply chains, eliminating inefficiency, dominating entire systems. He understood something timeless. Whoever controls the foundation of an economy controls the future. Oil was the foundation of the industrial age, and Rockefeller owned it. The legacy that still runs the world. Every major corporation today uses Rockefeller principles: system dominance, cost leadership, strategic buyouts, vertical integration, data-driven control, long-term ownership. From energy to tech to finance, his blueprint lives on. The end of the story and the beginning of modern capitalism. John D. Rockefeller didn't just create a company, he created the modern business empire. He didn't just make money, he rewrote how money is built, and long after his death, the world still runs on the systems he invented.
These are days when many are discouraged. In the 93 years of my life, depressions have come and gone. Prosperity has always returned and will again.